Hi guys, we're back with New Answers. Lesson number 10, we're going to be talking about Noah's Ark and the flood. And over the years, I've taught ancient history, world history, different geography. And one of the things I have found myself in doing research and teaching is that most people groups or, countries, individuals have some form of a global flood story that brings about the beginning of the earth. The Chinese have one about a giant chicken who scratches into the ground and after the flood and creates the rivers and things. Your book, In Their Words, that you should have read, gives you a story of the Australian Aborigines who have a global flood story. But many stories from different people groups around the world talk about global floods. And today we're going to talk about Noah's Ark and the flood. And the first thing I want to talk about is it's not just a story, okay? Yes, it's a nice little story, but it's a true event that occurred, and it's from the Bible. So let's first talk about the Ark itself. I had a privilege a few years ago of going to Kentucky and seeing the Ark that they have built there, the Creation Museum and different things, and the Ark was just huge. And truly, it's a huge vessel. It begins in, talks about it in Genesis 6, verse 15. And the dimensions are very interesting. The proportions are like that of a modern large ship. And historically, when you look at different things, it's about as large as a wooden ship can be built. It's approximately 510 feet long, 85 feet wide, and 51 feet high. So then you start thinking, people ask, well, could Noah have actually built the ark? Absolutely, he had plenty of time to do it. He also could have had help. His sons, I'm sure, helped, but he could have had other people helping him. They didn't know what was going on. They're just, collecting a wage. And he also had a few years, like I said, to harvest the timber and build the thing. So then people want to question, okay, but what about the animals, right? And I think the first thing we have to think about and remember is that it really is a huge vessel, okay? We think about ships, and often we think about the little boat we go on the lake, or even some of the larger boats we see. But we need to look at like cruise ship kind of size, okay? Very large vessels. And so could the ark have held all the animals? Could they have fit on the ark? Well, to start with, not every animal that we have today would have been on the ark. It was a very limited species, okay? Not every animal, but every kind of animal. Not every, it wouldn't have been every dog. It would have just been, dogs in general. Wouldn't have been every cat. It would have been felines, right? So, and it was only land-dwelling animals, creeping things, and birds. The other way he could have made this happen is by taking very young animals, right? You don't need a giant elephant when you could take a baby elephant. Save yourself some room, save yourself some trouble, also save yourself some food that you would have to have for them. So there's a lot of different ways that he could have fit all the animals on the ark. So then people say, well, how did he get all the animals to get on the ark? Did Noah have to go out and try to get all of them and, lasso them and bring them, drag them to the ark? Well, start with, it was a very different world because things weren't as spread out as they are now. But more importantly, Genesis 20 says that God stated the animals will come to you. So it was a supernatural event. Noah didn't have to go get the animals. God brought the animals to Noah. And again, it goes back to how did they actually fit, okay? Again, juvenile animals, limited species, and truly it was big enough. Then people say, okay, but he gets all the animals on the ark. How in the world did he care and feed for the animals? Well, first and foremost, it was an intelligent boat design, okay? If you get the chance to ever go to see the Ark in Kentucky, you really should go. There's a lot of things that they did there and kind of showed just from our brains and their brains as they put things together that how it could have been done. And it was very interesting. And so there had to have been an intelligent boat design. Again, limited animals. And as we saw how the animals got there was a supernatural event. So God very well could have held them not eat as much, not eat at all. They could have been hibernation. There's a lot of different things that could be going on, but he could have done it. So then let's talk about the flood. Okay, a global flood. Where did the water come from? Most of you probably know right from the get-go, right, that it rained, and rained a lot. 40 days and 40 nights of rain. I don't know if you've ever experienced a lot of rain, okay, and days of rain, but I've moved down to Florida, currently living in Florida, and have gone through a couple hurricanes recently, and you start getting rain for even 2 days in a row, 3 days in a row. That's a lot of rain, okay? We had water literally lapping up inside the edges of my house, and it was a little scary. And that was just after 2.5 days of rain. So imagine 40 days of nonstop rain. You're going to get a lot of water. But there was also other places that water came from. We have water that's below the earth, subterranean pools of fresh water. And during this time, you also had a lot of earthquakes and volcanoes, which was, shaking the earth and bringing this water up above the ground as well. So then, okay, so you have all this turmoil that's going on. You've got all this water coming from the ground and from the sky, and then water's pushing up. How in the world did the ark survive? First and foremost, it was divine construction. Noah took all his cues and all his instructions from God himself. So he knew exactly what he was doing and what he was doing, and so it was divine construction. People want to argue some of this, right? Whether it really was divine construction or divine intervention. And there was a study of Korean ships. They were studying out of Korea ships and ship qualities and different things. And so at one point they decided to do a modern study of the ark and whether or not it could withstand the storm and the waves, etc., etc. And what they figured out was through its design and the way it was built and where the doors were and its construction and lower kind of in the water that it could have. They went through model after model after model trying to basically destroy the ark, and it survived every model that they went through. So in essence, they ultimately said it could have survived that situation. Okay, so we have the animals building of the ark, got the animals on the ark, we're feeding the animals, we survived the storm, and then eventually the waters start to go away. Where did it go? Okay, Genesis 8:3 says the waters decreased. Well, first and foremost, we know that if it stops raining, that's going to help because you no longer have a water source coming into the area. But also, 3/4 of the Earth's surface is water. You have oceans and lakes and rivers on top of everything else, underground pools of water, it kind of filled back up. So that water would recede and go back to where it came from. Some of it's going to go back up into the sky, into the clouds and different things. And so at some point, and it took several days, as you know, if you read your Bible, that before that water completely receded, they can get off the ark. Other people want to question whether it was even a global flood. They want to say, well, it was just a local flood. It was confined to that area of Mesopotamia, modern day Iraq area, and it was between those mountains there, and it was just a kind of a local area flood. Well, first and foremost, that's not even biblical, okay? It was an actual global flood. It killed all other things, men, etc. God placed the rainbow in the sky to tell us he wouldn't do it anymore. It shows that the waters were probably 20 feet above the mountains. And we're not talking about like the mountains of Kentucky. We're not even talking about the mountains like the Rockies. We're talking about, the Alps and, all the major mountain areas. And so we're talking 20 feet above that. They're, 18,000 feet, 20,000 feet. So it's a little bit insane. Also, they find on a regular basis fossils in the mountains. Fossils that shouldn't be there. We found whale fossils at 12,000, 13,000 feet. How in the world did that get there? So all of the evidence is pointing towards it, that there was a global flood. Last thing we want to talk about then is why. We talked about sin in a different part of this lessons. And the major reason God destroyed the earth is because the people were sinners. The whole world basically had forgotten God except for Noah and his sons. And so he destroyed the earth. And that's a clear example of God's salvation for us and why he sent his son. And so I encourage you to look at that, see a little bit more, read into it, read your book, read the Bible, and kind of see the correlation between the ark saving a few men and God sending Jesus to save all of us. Thanks. Have a great day.